Bad girl, I'm a nice guy. Liquor in my cup, I gotta really toughen up. Yeah, nurse strap.
Hey guys, Manlykefresh here with episode 3 of my top 20s, which is my top 20 worst movies ever. Now guys, let's be real here, yeah? You see a trailer for a movie and you think, oh, I can't wait to see that film. And then when you go to the cinema or wherever you buy it from the shop or whatever you did to get the film, you watch the film and you think, oh my god, what the hell was that? You're so disappointed, like you don't know how to express yourself, and like you get so angry that you just want to scream and you just want to say like the first thing that comes to your mind, like, I don't know. Yo, tell me with this. Absolutely, Robert. Absolutely. It's so right. Absolutely. You're killing me with it. But anyway, let's count down. So, here we go. Let's do this. Number 20. So Belly begins in Queens, New York. It's based on two criminals called Buns and Sincere, both played by DMX and Nas. The concept of the film was good, and if you add the element of having T-Boz in there and Method Man in there, it was supposed to be a really good movie. The only thing that really let this movie down, however, was the acting. DMX can't act at all. Nas is even worse. Like, there's a reason why rappers should stay in their lane. When rappers start going into the film industry and start making films, and they haven't had no form of like acting skills or acting lessons, it's just a movie waiting to be a flop altogether. I mean, like I said, the concept of the movie was good, but what really let this movie down was the acting. So yeah, at number 20, it's Belly. Number 19.
The search of the three missing Montgomery College students continues in Frederick County tonight.
So The Blair Witch was a film that was made in 1999 based on three students who went to Black Hills, to go and search for a local legend called the Blair Witch. Now, globally the film was a success, but I remember in 1999 when I first watched this, I expected to be scared. This film didn't scare me. I was sat there scratching my head thinking, what did I just watch? So, at 19, Blair Witch Project. Number 18. So guys, what do you get when you take one of the best ever platform games created on Nintendo and turn it into a movie? You get absolute poo. That's what you get, poo. I mean, you had the likes of Dennis Hopper in it, Bob Hoskins, Samantha Mathis, Fisher Stevens and Fiona Shaw in this, some of America's greatest actors in this, and they couldn't make this film good. Why? Because the concept of the film was crap. Why would you take two characters and put them in Brooklyn, New York, add absolute rubbish special effects to the movie, and try and put your own spin on it when you should just stick to the original story? This is what I always say about when you make a game and turn it into a movie, stick to the script. If you don't stick to the script and you start adding your own ideas to it, this is the kind of rubbish that gets created. There's a reason why Super Mario Brothers was voted one of the worst movies of the 1990s because of this. Watch the movie and you'll see what I mean. So Super Mario Brothers, guys, at number 18. Number 17.
So you're a writer. What do you write about?
Oh, the sexual.
So Basic Instinct 2, which was the sequel to the great Basic Instinct 1 of 1990, is set in London, which follows the American best-selling author Catherine Trammell, who's played by Sharon Stone, to London, where she gets involved with a famous football star. Just like with every other kind of sequel, Some sequels should never be done. Did anyone really want to see a 50-year-old Sharon Stone try to recreate the magic that she did in Basic Instinct 1 when she was still a hot young lady? No, I didn't want to. Nobody else did, and if not for the fact that Sharon Stone was aging, look at the figures. The budget for this film was 70 million, and it only drew half of that in the box office. Just over 38 million it drew in the box office. So this goes to show, some sequels should never be done. Basic Instinct 1 was a great film. They should have left it like that. They should never have tarnished its legacy by making a second movie. So at number 17, guys, Basic Instinct 2.
Addicted to rest.
Basic instinct.
Number 16.
In an ancient time, Earth was nearly destroyed. Not by man, but by gods from the...
Right, so I'm just going to break it down like this. I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan. This film was a complete disgrace. And I'll tell you why it was a complete disgrace. Anybody who actually does follow the Dragon Ball Z or the Dragon Ball Super or Dragon Ball anime or the manga would know that Goku is not was not an 18-year-old high school kid. The guy was eccentric. He was a delinquent. He never studied in his life. He never went to school. Roshi was not a young Japanese man with black hair. The only character they got correct in this was kind of Piccolo, and even then, Piccolo doesn't look the way he should do. Bulma doesn't fight, but they've made Bulma a fighter in this. The film, to me, this is exactly what I said in Super Mario Brothers. If you're going to create a live-action movie, follow the original concept of the movie. Don't add your own twist to it. Hollywood like to do this a lot, and hence the reason why they get all these movies that come out and they suck. I mean, don't get me wrong, the film did well in the box office, but like I said, to fans like me, who know what the true Dragon Ball series is all about, this movie was a disgrace. It should never seen the light of day in the movies, and as far as I'm concerned, if I ever do see a Dragon Ball Evolution 2, I will go and find the person who created the movie, and I will spit in his face. So at number 16, Dragon Ball Evolution. Number 15.
Every generation, an ancient gateway opens that links the Earth with another world.
So, Mortal Kombat Annihilation was the sequel to 1995's Mortal Kombat movie, which did very, very well. However, like I said, some sequels should never happen. Mortal Kombat Annihilation was a complete disaster. The special effects were bad, the acting was bad. I mean, this film, the only reason why it did so well in the box office was because Mortal Kombat in the 90s was a very popular concept. It's still popular now, but back in the 90s it was way up there with the likes of Street Fighter and other great games that were out at the time. So even this film was so bad that even Mortal Kombat creators Ed Boon and John Tobias said this was by far one of the worst elements of their entire franchise. So at number 15, it's Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Number 14.
New on DVD and video, Home Alone, taking back the house.
Here they come.
So what do you get, guys, when you make the fourth movie of Home Alone and try to make it a remake of the original one, of Home Alone 1, which didn't have the original cast, which was a lot funnier, and you try to add a modern twist to it? You get the disaster that's Home Alone 4. Enough said. Home Alone 4, guys, at number 14. Worst movie ever created out of all the Home Alones. Number 13.
Once upon a time, or was it more recently, there was a young boy named Dodger.
So the Garbage Pail Kids movie was a live-action adaptation of the then popular trading cards game of the same name. It was kind of a spin-off of Cabbage Patch Kid Dolls, but the only problem with this movie was it was very derogatory. You had little dwarf men running around in really bad costumes. you could never get away with that kind of movie now. Like, you know, human rights and all of that. Like, they just portrayed all these characters as evil beings, or they weren't even evil beings. They were just like, you know, little cretins who used to run around and just causing havoc. But this movie, which was supposed to be for children, was not for kids. It was voted one of the worst movies ever. It only generated 1.5 million in the box office. What else can you say about this movie? You know, even it was nominated for 3 Razzies apparently in the late 80s, and it got the eighth Golden Raspberry Awards, which is for the worst visual effects, worst new stars, and basically the worst movie ever created in the late '80s. Like, this is definitely a film to stay away from. So number 13, the Garbage Pail Kids, which, oh mate, if this kind of acting ever did exist in this day and age, the movie industry might as well shut down. Number 12.
Expecting you to be on your best behavior this fall.
Best behavior. Got it.
You mess up again? If I get one call from the sisters...
So, Bad Sister is a movie about a student called Jason who goes to boarding school with his sister and is stalked by, who they don't know at the time, by a woman called Sister Sophia, who actually isn't Sister Sophia. The original Sister Sophia was, well, I'm going to give you a spoiler. So basically, the original Sister Sophia was killed by this impersonating woman that you see on the screen, and the whole reason why she becomes Sister Sophia is so she can have an infatuation, love affair with this student that she's been stalking from around the way. It is a good movie in terms of the concept, but it's quite blasphemic for some people who do believe in sisterhood and do believe in the whole covenant. So to have this kind of movie to portray a nun who goes around killing people and seducing people, all in the name of seduction and lust and whatever, it's just a film that you just feel, wow, okay. It's, like I said, the concept of the movie was good, but the whole storyline was just absolutely weird. Like, from beginning to end, it was quite unrealistic. I didn't really like the movie. Some people might like it, but yeah. So, at number 12, Bad Sister. Number 11. So Godzilla 1998 is the retelling of the original film of the 1937 version. The 1937 version was a very, very good film. I personally did like this 1998 version, but the reason why this movie is on the list is because this film in the late 90s got one of the worst reviews ever. One of the reasons why it got such a bad review was because a lot of people felt that it was, it just kind of made the original film look absolutely rubbish. So they took the original concept of Godzilla but added a modernized twist to it, and the special effects were good, but the whole film, it just didn't feel right. By what a lot of people were saying, they felt the acting was really poor. It was the worst remake of any sequel ever created. The director didn't know what he was doing. The screenplay wasn't very good. And yeah, so that's why it got such a bad review. But in the box office, it did really well. But because of how people felt about it, it was classified one of the worst movies ever made. So yeah, at number 11, Godzilla. Number 10.
Meet Derek Thompson. He doesn't believe in fair play.
So this film, which involves Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the main character, his character is a guy that is not a very nice person, really egotistical, and doesn't believe in fairy tales, and literally doesn't believe in his daughter's dreams of believing in the Tooth Fairy. So as a result of him almost destroying his daughter's dreams of the Tooth Fairy, he himself is turned into a fairy to do the Tooth Fairy work, which really makes this film really cringe. I mean, hats off to Dwayne The Rock Johnson for doing this movie, because I tell you, you couldn't pay me any kind of money to look this pathetic and this stupid. I mean, he himself has said that this is one of the worst movies he's ever made in terms of what it did for his image. Like, up till now, he can't live up. He can't live the concept of being a tooth fairy. I mean, you know, I know it was made for children and it was a good box office draw, but sorry, the acting was crap. The film concept was crap. Dwayne Johnson looks like an idiot. I mean, wow. Like, this movie could have finished Dwayne The Rock Johnson if he wasn't careful. So, at number 10, The Tooth Fairy. Number 9.
I want everything to be all planned out and lined up for me. This place is boring. It's boring!
So, the vampire assistant follows the life of a 16-year-old boy called Darren, who him and his best friend who's called Steve, go and watch a freak show circus act. While they're at this circus act, they seem to see that a lot of things that they see is not as it should seem. After they watch the main show, Steve, who's Darren's friend, discovers that the main character inside this act is actually a real vampire, and that there's legends about him inside a book. Darren's approached by this vampire guy, gets turned into a vampire, and literally lives his days out as a vampire, and forgets his entire life. That's basically the whole concept of the film, basically. The film wasn't very good. It didn't portray a good perception of how vampires truly are. It was meant to be funny, but it was just cringe. I mean, I actually sat down and watched this with one of my friends, and I just thought to myself, yeah, never again. So yeah, at number 9, we have The Vampire's Assistant.
So you really don't kill people? No, Darren. You just sedate them, make a small incision in the shoulder, and then you take a sip.
Number 8.
Last Christmas, a magical world beyond the wardrobe was brought to life.
So Epic Movie was created by the people that brought you Scary Movie. The plot basically follows a woman called Lucy who finds her adopted father in a museum, and is basically stalked by a guy called Silius, who was played by Kevin Hart. Just like all of these movies, types of parodies, they are kind of spun off of other movies. So it's based off Snakes on the Plane, The Da Vinci Code, Chronicles of Narnia, X-Men, and just poor. I remember I was working at Blockbuster at the time, and one of the perks of working at Blockbuster was you get to rent free movies. So I took this home to watch, and I thought, even as someone who rented this for free, I was so disappointed. Like, let alone for people that actually paid to rent to watch this in the movie, or paid to rent it from the cinema, from Blockbuster at the time. Gosh, it was crap. It was absolutely rubbish. Like, I'm so glad they don't make these kind of movies no more. Scary Movie was the original, and it should have stuck at it. Another example of when you've got something good, don't kill it with more sequels. So yeah, at number 8 we have Epic Movie. Number 7. If this movie was Halle Berry's first film, I believe her career would have been finished, because she really couldn't act in this film. Even the story, Catwoman as a DC character, this film did not portray Catwoman in the way she should have been portrayed, and it was actually voted one of the worst movies of all time. It only generated about 82 million in the box office when its budget was 100 million. And I think this is one movie that Halle Berry would love to forget. So yeah, at number 7 we have Catwoman. Number 6. So, The Last Airbender was basically a movie created from the Avatar anime, that was created by Nickelodeon. The film actually, in terms of acting, wasn't bad. It was very good. The only thing that let this film down was, like I said before, when you try to portray a game or an anime into a live action film, you need to stick to the main storyline. They did that, but the biggest problem was they tried to portray too much in one film. So rather than break it down into different films, they put it all together. And what the problem was is there was an inconsistency. There was a lag in storytelling. Like the story didn't make sense. So, and that's one of the reasons why this film was heavily criticized, because there was no structure to it, and in the end, it just seemed rushed and unplanned. So, at number 6 is The Last Airbender. Number 5.
Threat of nuclear war is Superman.
I'm going to do what our governments have been unwilling or unable to do.
Superman 4: The Quest for Peace was a 1987 film which starred the late great Christopher Reeve, who obviously played Superman, Gene Hackman, who played Lex Luthor, and then you had Mel Hemingway, who played Lois Lane. The problem with this film was the film had the worst form of acting ever. I mean, with all the names in this film, the acting was bad, and to make it worse, Meryl Hemingway, who usually played a great Lois Lane in this, was by far the worst supporting actress ever in any movie created in this time period. And the budget was 17 million, and it only picked up 15.6 million in the box office. It didn't do well, and I think this is probably the reason why all the Superman films come to an end, because of this film. The special effects was bad as well. So yeah, that's Superman 4 for you. At number 5. Number 4. Highlander 2: The Quickening featured Christopher Lampard and Sean Connery, and it was nothing like its original version of Highlander. This film was so bad that it actually had to be remade because it got such bad reviews. Like, if there was a film that represented failure, Highlander 2 is definitely up there. And I haven't watched it personally, but by looking at the trailer, I can tell that this film was bad. So yeah, Highlander 2 at number 4. Number 3.
Don't understand why you have to drive down to Florida. We just had the funeral.
Your grandmother and I were there at this time every year.
So the concept of this film is basically a guy called Jason Kelly, who is a lawyer, takes his grandfather, who's played by Robert De Niro, on a holiday after the death of his wife, or Zac Efron's character's grandma, dies. So as a result of the death, he takes his granddad on a holiday, and literally the story is really good, but the downside of this film is it is very sexist, very mature. It literally portrays the dark side of what like humor should be, and a lot of people have really criticized this film. That Robert De Niro should never ever done a film so derogatory to women. They shouldn't have portrayed him as this dirty old man who preys on young, vulnerable women. Basically, that's what they've kind of done in this movie. So the film itself wasn't a flop, but the actual story was a flop, and what the movie portrayed, and that's why it's one of the worst movies created. So at number 3, we have Dirty Grandpa. Number 2.
If you think you had a rough start,
So Norbit was basically a film created by Eddie Murphy, which starred Cuba Gooding Jr. and Eddie Murphy himself, who played Norbit, Mr. Wong, and Rasputia. Rasputia basically was the girlfriend of turned wife of Norbit, who literally was being bullied by her left, right, and centre. You know, like when you've kind of seen this same gimmick of Eddie Murphy play multiple characters over and over again, it gets quite boring and quite tiresome. Hence why the movie was voted for the worst picture, worst director, worst screenplay. Believe it or not, I couldn't believe that Cuba Gooding Jr., who's generally a good actor, got voted the worst actor in this movie. It got worst supporting actor in Eddie Murphy, worst supporting actress in Eddie Murphy, and worst screen couple. That's how bad people portrayed this movie. So, and I have to agree, I didn't enjoy it. I thought the movie sucked. One of Eddie Murphy's worst movies ever created. But hey, it did well in the box office, so good luck. So good to him. So at number 2, Norbit. Before I give you number 1,
Take him out, Commander.
We are locked on.
And Little Jeff was the 2 most feared cops in all of Harlem.
Hey, where's everybody going?
See the Jeff squad coming. Leave the cash.
No! Don't climb out! Don't move! It'll fall!
and here we go, guys. Here's number 1.
After 7 months of fighting, the civil war in Shadaloo may have reached the turning point. The capital has just fallen.
In December 1994, the forces of freedom will face a power-mad dictator in a struggle for the fate of the world.
So Street Fighter the movie, which was created in 1995, was the live-action adaptation of Capcom's famous Street Fighter franchise, which starred Kylie Minogue, who played Cammy, and Jean-Claude Van Damme, who played the main protagonist in Guile. You'd think by having Cammy played by Kylie Minogue, and Guile played by Jean-Claude Van Damme, that the action would be in this film be really good, but they're the only 2 that performed well. The others, the costumes, they were all so bad. I mean, that's not just the worst part of the film. The worst part of the film is the Ryu scene and the Ken scene, which I will speak about right now, because if I don't get this off my chest, people will not understand why I reckon this is the worst film ever created. Ladies and gentlemen, please feast your eyes upon this atrocity. In this scene, Ryu is taking on Vega. What's the special Hadouken? Hadouken! Where's the Hadouken? Where's the light? Okay. Down. Watch Ken. Ken does his special Shoryuken. So, Shoryuken, the Dragon Punch. What was that? He didn't even leave the floor. It was a spinning uppercut. Like, I can't talk about this movie no more. It is that bad. So the number 1, Street Fighter the movie.
Now, who wants to go home and who wants to go with me?
And we've come to the end of this episode, guys. They are my worst top 20 movies ever. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did like the video, then I'd please like you to subscribe, share my content, like the video, or in fact dislike the video if that's how you feel, because like I always say, any kind of attention is better than no attention. My next episode shall be episode 4, which will now focus on my top 20 best movies ever, which will be a bit more interesting because I have a lot of movies which I feel I want to talk about. There are a couple of friends who I need to discuss and talk about what movies they actually kind of like. I've even sought permission from one of my friends who has done a UK movie which is quite popular, which I will feature on the next episode. So guys, that's the end of this. Enjoy. See you soon. Bye bye.
Bad girl, I'm a nice guy. Liquor in my cup, I gotta really toughen up. Yeah, nurse strap.